Hi, everyone, welcome in. My name is Ryan Moore, and I chose my capstone to be how has the way each generation accessed their bank account and how has that changed over the past 10 years? A little backstory on me is I started working at Capital One back in October, and I'm also completing my MBA at the University of Maryland Global Campus. And throughout my MBA, I have been looking into different banking programs, different things about Capital One, and made a few different projects, kind of showcasing their investments, style. And one of the things I kept seeing over and over again was actually how much banks are investing into technology. It's no question that over the last 10 to 20 years, banks have been investing into technology at an insane rate. Not only do they need to make their apps more user friendly, but they also need to invest into security so that their systems aren't easily compromised. Banks have been investing billions into technology. For example, JP Morgan alone has been investing more than $12 billion a year into IT. Now, obviously, that's more than just the mobile app, but one of the main ways they've been investing is making their mobile and online platforms more intense, including like account opening, peer-to-peer payments, account maintenance, credit monitoring, and much more. For example, at Capital One, we no longer open consumer accounts at our physical branches, and instead they are all done either online or through the mobile app. So when someone comes in, we actually just guide them through the website, how to open their account, how to do account maintenance. Another thing that has been exploding lately has been peer-to-peer payment services with Zelle, Cash App, and Venmo. The US and the world in general is just moving more from traditional banking and moving more towards online and mobile banking. And these large investments is the reason that I actually picked my capstone because I wanted to see the impact the investments had on banking industry. So why banking? Like I said, I started working at Capital One back in October. One of the things that caught my eyes early on was the fact that people came into the bank consistently to check on their accounts. Although many of the customers were older, there were people from all different age groups. It surprised me because most of the people I know do not go into the bank to check on their accounts. Instead, they access them through the mobile app or website. And this led me to my capstone project. My definition statement was I built a data analysis project that answers how each generation changed the way they access their bank accounts over the last 10 years. And the audience would be a marketer or an executive. If a marketer was looking at the data, they could see if it'd make more sense to make an advertising kind of showcasing the online platforms versus an older generation might want to see that the bank is more than just an online bank. They'd showcase, the physical locations, other attractions that the bank has, and less focus on the technology. And lastly, an executive could look at the growth of mobile banking over the last 10 years and see that their investments into technology have been paying off and people are enjoying the investments. So I actually found my data set on the FDIC website. The FDIC performs a household survey every 2 years and asks a variety of questions. One of those questions was the question I actually used, which was the most common way they access their bank account. This data did have multiple demographics, so I was able to actually take each year, kind of like right here, and that was just 2021, and I was able to filter it down. So my process for doing this included using Python at first to actually take each CSV and use that to turn it into a data frame. After doing that, I was able to remove the first 13 rows and then only keep the next 6 using a skip rows function and then a dot head function. This allowed me to just get the age group demographic, and then I was able to do that for each year after that. To combine each data set, I used a PD concat function that actually joined all the functions together, and then I saved that new data frame into an Excel. However, the way that I skipped the rows made me exclude the actual column names. So I used a rename function and renamed each of the column names, which gave me this final Excel sheet down here. After I got it into an Excel, I was able to create pivot tables that included the year, the age group, and the total percentage for each category. I created a pivot table that included right here, it was the years. And then after that, I was able to make it for the categories. And I was able to use the function table to actually be able to create a heat map. I used this function table to create a heat map using a change function, which was simply just a sum, the 2021 data minus 2013 data. And that allowed me to show the change. And I used that change to actually create a third pivot table, and I was able to graph that. As you can see through the heat map and the change, almost all the changes were negative except for in mobile banking. And there's only a small spike in the 65 years or more category. This data basically is just percentages, and it shows the age group. So right here, from 15 to 24, you can see that in 2013, we had 27%, and by 2021, it went down to 14%. And you can see in mobile banking, it started at 19%, and by 2021, it spiked all the way up to 74%. So especially for the younger generations, we saw a huge increase, and that gradually decreased as people got older, which was expected in the data set just because of the nature of the question. So a little side story is throughout the 12 weeks of our program, we actually were working in an agile team, and we used Jira to actually create a board to help our learning and progress be systemized. Every class, we'd have a daily stand up to discuss any progress we had, any roadblocks, and what we worked on the day before. We used sprint planning in 2 weeks to create issues and child issues with tasks that needed accomplished. This typically consisted of homework assignments, capstone, learning objectives, or any other things that were assigned throughout the week. The child issues included story points that rated the difficulty of each task. So if it was a big homework assignment, we'd give it a higher rating than if it was a smaller task or just a small learning objective. Lastly, we performed sprint reviews and retrospectives to discuss what went well in the sprint, what could have been improved on, what we got done, and what still needs to be done. This helped us stay on task and continue working as a team. During the 12-week program, I was able to work as a product owner, in which I was responsible for creating the sprints, updating the sprints, and completing the sprints based on our team's feedback. This was all done through Jira and allowed for easy project management. I was able to create 2 reports to kind of showcase our progress. In the first sprints, there was a lot of tasks committed and not as many completed. This was typically because we carried over some of the tasks into the next sprint, such as like our capstone, which was just carried throughout the entire program. We also had other things that just had to be rearranged. And we can also see in our cumulative flow diagram, we had a lot to do in the beginning. And as it progressed, we kind of accomplished more and more. When I ran this report, we still did have the capstone that I'm presenting, which is why there's still a little bit of to do on our flow diagram. However, everything has been completed now. So what were my findings of the actual project? The findings, these graphs show us a breakdown of each year. In 2013, we can see that online banking, bank teller, and the ATM were the main ways for actually accessing the account. And as the years went on, we see an increase in mobile banking. However, we see a huge spike in 2019, and that carried on into 2021. We can actually see that mobile banking has increased exponentially in every category, and each age group kind of trended together. We did see a few outliers, such as in 65 years or older. We did see an increase in online banking, and mobile banking still did not make up a large percentage of the main way they access their account, with bank tellers still being one of the number ones they access their account. However, we did see that the younger generations did have a huge increase in how much they access their account through the mobile banking platforms. Even online decreased dramatically. And this was expected, as just because of the nature of the account, most people do look at their accounts online as the preferred method. In these charts, we can see that a very clear picture of how much has changed. The last charts were just showing the overall percentage at each year, but this one is actually going over the change. Now, in this first chart, we just see that mobile banking spiked in each age group. No matter what the age group was, we saw a huge spike in mobile banking, with almost every other category decreasing, other than in 65 years or older. We did see two other spikes in online and telephone banking. And again, this chart just is broken down by category instead. And it shows again that mobile banking was the only category that really spiked, other than in the 65 years or older. We can also see how much other things have changed using these bubble graphs. And as you can see, the largest changes were mainly in bank teller and in online banking, which is expected because most of the demographic that is online banking just moved to the mobile platform instead of the online platform, just because now everyone has their mobile app downloaded on their phone. But we also did see a huge decrease in the bank teller as the main way of accessing their account for the older generations as well. And lastly, my conclusions. The main findings were that all the age groups have been changing their preferences accessing their account, either online or through the app, primarily just through the mobile app. And the main way most clients are accessing their account is through the mobile app. It is essential that the mobile app is user friendly, has a broad range of capabilities, is secure, and the features our users looking forward. We also saw that the younger generation primarily accesses the account at a way higher rate. We did see that almost 75% of the youngest generation on the study access their account through the mobile app, with even the next generation almost at 70%, which means that most of the younger generation will likely continue to want to use the mobile app going into the future. I was able to learn a lot during this project, including finding a data set, using Python to combine multiple data sets, using Excel to clean and enrich the data, and using Excel and Tableau to visualize the data in a way that's easy to digest. This taught me kind of bringing a project to life and showcasing not only where the data is, but how to actually turn that into a diagram and bar graph that actually showcases a story. The limitations of this, however, was that it only looked at the main way they access their account. Now, it did not take into factors such as what would be a deal breaker for them, which would be another data set that would be very beneficial for the same market. Obviously, if they're just accessing their account, it's still very important. But if they're saying, I would not have a bank that's not local, that would be equally as important to a marketer and an executive. And again, it is unclear how many ways that people access their account. Although it looked at the main way, it did not say the amount of times they used the other methods. So they could say that the main way was the mobile app, like in the younger generations, but they could also be using the ATM on almost a weekly basis, which would greatly skew the numbers in either direction. I think it'd be very interesting to add those two different questions into the actual data set. However, when I was looking at the FDIC survey and looking for more data sets, I could not find a consistent question over all the years. The changes would be small, and this question was really the one that allowed me to look at